Welcome back to Talking Story, everybody. My name is John Minton, and today I am so thrilled to welcome Michael R. Miller here with me today. And Michael, I have to thank you, and I'm going to have to give you the absolute Brave Soul Award because you are the first author or first anyone to want to come on and talk story with me. Who knows what kind of interviewer I'm going to be? This could be the most arduous, horrible experience you've ever had. You just jumped in there, so I really want to thank you and give you the Brave Soul Award for jumping in, man.
Oh, no, happy to be here. Happy to jump in and get stuck in. That's why.
Excellent. Well, we are here. Michael is the author of the Songs of Chaos series and a series before that as well. I have not read any of that series. Give me the rundown on that because I haven't checked that out yet.
Yeah, my first trilogy is called The Dragon's Blade. It is complete. I finished that in 2018. It's done very well via box sets. So there's a sort of omnibus version of the ebook, audiobook, and soon to be hardback. It's a shame. I actually just posted off my only two proofs of the full hardback wrap, which is just stunning. But that's going to come out soon from Broken Binding and then be more available everywhere else. The kind of basic pitch premise for that is like it's about this arrogant dragon prince who is reborn, secretly raised by humans instead, and has to learn to become the king that his past self never was. And this sort of little twist on the world building here is that although the dragons in this world were once fire-breathing lizards, as we love and know, in the lore of the world, they were transformed into humans, so they look like us. They kind of look exactly like humans, but they're faster and stronger. So it's a bit like a super race of Captain America's versus, and then there are regular humans in the world. And whilst they are ostensibly fighting dark forces and demons and things like this, a lot of the conflict, a lot of the story comes from regular humans and these dragons who are like superhumans, and that there's a tension between them. It's kind of like what would it be like if there was just a superhuman race in this world? We probably wouldn't get along. We'd probably be very scared of them. We wouldn't necessarily get along very well. So there's a bit of that, and Daniel ends up being this sort of bridge between the two. And can he pull it all together?
Yeah,
is the question.
That sounds you're and I think I saw something on Twitter that you may be thinking about like a Kickstarter version of this coming.
No, it's going to be a regular. So it's an omnibus hardback of the trilogy. I've got it all squished into one big book. It's such a shame. The only two copies I had actually I've just posted off today. But it's all three books in one hardback. It's 1,100 pages, but we've got it in there. It's a beautiful Chris McGrath artwork. It's the same artwork that's on the current ebook and audiobook box set versions, but fully wrapped around a dust jacket, and this one with with a nice case design as well, and a really cool interior double page sort of title page art as well. It's not like a super duper Kickstarter special edition, but it's a very nice.
So it's something everybody can find and get a hold of.
Yeah, it will be I wanted to make sure it was available everywhere because that series really took off when it went into like an omnibus set, and it's really what gave me my career. And awesome. So I wanted to make sure that trilogy set was always available. So once it launches, so it's going to launch from the Broken Binding first. There's going to be, I think, 100 numbered, stamp numbered, limited signed copies. Thereafter, you can still get signed copies through them. It'll just be tip-in sheets. But once those have gone through, it will then be available everywhere for general sale. So you should be able to go into Amazon or Barnes & Noble and find this thing eventually. I don't know when, but sometime later, October, November, around that time, it will be available.
So Broken Binding does beautiful stuff. I can't wait to see that. You're killing my TBR, Michael. You're killing it. 1,100 more pages. Why not? Let's throw it right on top.
Why not? Well, you seem to be plowing through reads, man. You're going really quick for a lot of books.
I'm doing my best, and I'm just drowning. I cannot get caught up. I'm doing the best I can. Yeah,
there is a lot out there. Especially if you start to look in some of the indie stuff. I mean, there's so much more.
Yeah,
there's so many ebooks. There's so much going on.
It sounds like in the first trilogy, and this is just me grasping. Like I say, I haven't checked this out yet, but it sounds like the theme of the others works its way through a lot of your work. Is that something that you're interested in? Is that something that you're kind of drawn to?
I guess it must be, yeah. And I'm even thinking of I've got one eye on my series that will come after Songs of Chaos, and a little bit of that is already seeping in somehow into the setup. Yeah, I think when I went through university, I did history,
Hmm.
and I did a lot of Scottish history, and but with a particular slant towards looking at the Union, so the UK Union, so when Scotland and England joined, and everything that happened around that time, and some of the national movements that have come and gone since, and all the way. So it was like it was kind of medieval stuff up to modern stuff, and I I seem to kind of get this weird thing out of it because a lot of people in the classes were from overseas. There was a lot of Americans at my uni. There was lots of people from Europe and England, and I was in these Scottish history classes as like one of the few Scots, and it was a kind of weird thing to try and grasp actually because you had to be able to be like, yeah, I know that I am Scottish, but I'm also British, so you can
Right.
understand these issues between like the Union and the. And I think so. I think that maybe came into it a little bit. I mean, the idea for in the first trilogy with the main character who's called Dalnir, this dragon prince that is a sort of child of two worlds, essentially. And so that was always there. That was always there. And maybe it's something that was super deep in the subconscious because I had that idea when I was like 10 years old. It was like the sort of first book idea I ever had. It was percolating around, my head since forever.
Yeah, see, I'm
And
half Irish and
yeah,
half English, so that idea of the outsider and that, like fitting
yeah,
in, yeah, I
yeah.
totally get that, and I just saw it. I saw it in the one book I've read, and it sounds like it's kind of weaves its way through some of your other work. But if I can, I kind of want to start at the beginning. After I just wanted to hear a little bit about that initial trilogy because I haven't sought it out yet, but I absolutely am gonna. But if I can start out at the beginning of your artist journey, is there that moment? And it seems to me that every artist has that crystalline moment that they have on their mantle or they have on their memory that's when I knew I wanted to be a storyteller. That's when the lightning struck.
I don't know. I always just had this little dream that I nursed quietly that I think I wanted to write stories, or I had this one story that I really wanted to write. I think it probably when I was young, it was like you had Lord of the Rings hit cinema with Harry Potter and some of this. There was like a really big confluence of like you had like the Star Wars prequels, you had Lord of the Rings in the cinema, you had Harry Potter in the cinema and the books, and then I jumped into all the books and all the rest of it. You just had this like conflicts, like right when I was like 9, 10, 11. That kind of like I was done. I was obviously
That was it.
I was predisposed to like it, obviously, but that was it. I was hooked in, and I just always that idea for the first series, Dragon's Blade, just kind of just rooted in. I think I had like a toy sword that was vaguely similar to what the Dragon's Blade kind of looks like, and I think that maybe I got a bit of idea from that. But it just went from there. I don't know where it started because that idea was just always around in my head, playing around for years and years and years. And I never really took it seriously because, you go through school and you don't do any creative writing. It's drudgery and
And
they don't
that's
really teach you
what a
writing. Yeah,
crime,
it
man.
sucks.
What a
It
crime,
is.
right? Like,
I
I
think
mean,
so.
used to that would be
Mm.
covered in a regular education.
Yeah, not now. It's all, critique this, but you don't really get to critique anything. You just have to memorize what they think you should say, and it's not very ideal. And actually, if they just taught people how to write both creatively, if they really got into the nuts and bolts of actual writing craft, I think everyone would benefit from that because everyone has to write lots of emails or essays or whatever, and just being able to write better and more coherently and edit would be
And
such
just
amazing skills.
what it
Um,
would do for creative thinking as well, or critical thinking as well, to have that taught as a background as opposed to just teaching to the standardized test, which it seems like that's where education is going more and more now.
no, I totally agree. It's a hobby horse. If I could, snap my fingers, I'd do something about that. But
Yeah,
I
you and
get
me
it.
both,
But
because
yeah,
what I love about this book, and we're going to get into it in a minute, is like I love young people having so many different avenues to find themselves and find a chance for success. And it seems like education in the school setting is that's drying up, and there's less and less of that possibility.
I think what's out there, I learned when I came to try to start writing. So I had that dream, but never really took it seriously. Kind of ignored it, and then I had a quarter life crisis. I came to London to do law, and kind of had a quarter life
Really?
crisis. Where I was like, yeah, I was like, I don't want to, because it was a very So I'd already graduated from history, and so here in the UK, if you already have a degree, you can do the law degree condensed. So rather than doing the full 3 years, you can do it in one. But you're still doing most of it in one.
That
So it's
doesn't
very,
sound
very,
pleasant.
yeah, it's not
It sounds
pleasant.
condensed, but not pleasant.
Yeah, yeah, it's the
No wonder you had
it's
a
pretty tough.
crisis.
Yeah, it was pretty tough, and it was just tough. It was a tough time. You moved to a new place. You were trying to
Yeah.
make friends. It was a bit. There was other things going on. It wasn't a brilliant time for a number of reasons, but just yeah, quarter life crisis. And I kind of that was my escape route. I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to. This is what I actually want to do, and threw myself into that first book. And thankfully, it's worked out because
Yeah.
I don't know what I'd do without it. But yeah,
So
so
would you say the Harry Potter, the Star Wars trilogy, the Harry Potter trilogy, these movies that eventually took you to the J.K. Rowling books, are those like some of your earliest influences that kind of pulled you into this fantastical world?
yeah, it was Harry Potter. It was Lord of the Rings slash Hobbit. It was what else was like? What was it in terms of just books? What was I getting into? I think when did Aragon come out? That was around the same time.
It was
Uh,
close, yeah.
it was close. Yeah, I remember. It's all kind of around that same time. Um, yeah, there was a teenage spy book called Alex Rider. I don't know if that was ever big in the States, but it was like it was meant to be like a teenage James Bond.
Right.
Those books were great. They're probably I don't know if they would hold up very well if I went back to them, but they were great.
And for the
Um,
nostalgia, they may be great.
yeah, and I
So you're
I
there.
always listened. I mainly listened. I listened more than I read,
Mm.
and that continues to this day. I think I take it in better if I listen. Oddly
Real, I
enough,
can't do
yeah.
audiobooks, man.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
some
wish
people can, some people can't. Some people take things in better when they read, and some people take it in better when they listen, I think. And that's what I think in some ways I'm able to learn better now just from videos or things like that online. Because reading very dense books, like I think that tired me out when I was school and uni. Whereas if someone could present the same information via like a podcast or something, I'd have eaten it up. So
Mhm.
yeah, but it's just how I consume it best. I still read occasionally. I'll still pick something up and read it occasionally, but it could also just be the workaholic in me. If I'm sitting down and I have time to read, I probably have time to do some writing or editing or something. Whereas audio can be done when you're doing other things. So I kind of
Oh my god,
multitask.
I could not do that. I have to have, like, laser focus. I can't so for me, like, my background in theater, I can't listen to the audiobook because I get caught up in, "And why do you make that choice on that
Oh,
line?"
okay,
You know,
okay.
like,
So
I start listening and watch and thinking of the
yeah.
performance as opposed to the story, and then it's like, I haven't caught anything from the past 5 pages.
So you're an actor. You've
I
got
it
acting experience. Yeah,
many years ago,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I could see how you maybe get caught up in that. Yeah, you know how the sausage is made. Sometimes that's one of the dark sides of being an author. Sometimes you can't get into stuff in the same way because you're doing exactly what you're saying yourself. But why have you done this? And I see what you're doing here, and oh, I don't know if I would have done it like that. And it's it's harder just to get completely
Yeah,
sucked
so
in.
same for
When
you
it
from the
happens,
written word. Yeah,
yeah,
so maybe it's
yeah,
easier to just tune out and listen. Yeah. Oh, that's
could be,
interesting.
could be, could be.
So you found yourself in London. You're
Hmm.
doing the law thing. You're gonna throw
Yep,
yourself into your first book.
yep.
When was the realization like, you know what, I'm gonna go indie and I'm gonna self-publish? Like what was that decision making process like?
That was also a pretty easy decision because if if I went indie, it was guaranteed to happen because I could make it happen.
Right.
And what I needed right then was a little bit because everything else was so uncertain. What I needed was that certainty of if I write this, it will become a thing because I will make it a thing. I will publish it. I won't have to go through the whole thing. It won't get rejected 500 times or whatever. If even if it runs the gambit, it could take a very long time. I what I needed was to just get it done. I needed the escape valve and the vent. All of that energy went into that book, and I can't imagine doing that now because I was doing all that studying of that incredibly tough course, writing kind of late at night,
Wow.
not really doing anything else for about 6 months. It was insane. I don't know how I made it. Right. I wouldn't recommend anyone to do it because
When
it
did
was
you
insane.
sleep?
Well, yes, the question. I don't know. I don't think I did.
Yeah,
Um,
you couldn't have.
so yeah, and then after that for a while, I was had before I went full time. Then there was some working and writing and around that. And I look back in that time and I just think I was running off of pure hopes and dreams, like hopium, snorting dream dust, like because I was just had to do it. And then once you
Yeah.
kind of get out of that and the adrenaline comes down, and you think, oh my god, how did I do that? Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I had to make it. I had to release it myself because I had to know it was going to happen. It was what was getting me through that time,
Mhm.
was knowing it would be a real thing in my hand and on the shelf, well, on the digital shelves.
Sure.
Um, yeah, yeah,
So that's, I mean, it's such a cool thing about this whole self-pub movement that I'm finding is that people can have that finish line, and if they wanna start an artist journey, I mean, they have that power. It's really phenomenal that, you don't have to look at yourself in the mirror and go, "Oh, I should, this is who I really am, but I can't, and I don't have the," it's like now a lot of those obstacles are removed by this type of movement.
yeah. Well, some obstacles are removed. You've you've got to have a weird. You've got to have a really weird personality. Probably you've got to have you've got to be somewhat arrogant to think that anyone gives a flying crap about what you've got to say or do.
Yeah.
You've got to be humble and anxious enough that you're willing to take feedback, or like that you seek feedback first of all, and then you have to be able to actually take it. These are three very odd things, and you have to have the right mixture of all three.
Right.
It is a bit strange, but yeah, yeah. And I think it suits some people's personality types more, right? If you were someone who found the idea of learning everything else and doing it all and running and just super stressful, if that just sounds like hell on earth to you, yeah, maybe
Yeah.
don't do it. Like
Yeah.
that's perfectly reasonable. I think more these days it's not so much about which is viable, and because they're both very viable, clearly, they're both very hard and they're very viable. I don't think one's any easier, strictly speaking. I mean, and there's huge pros and huge cons to each one. And so really I think it's just which path suits your personality better. If you're very, very driven, if you if you are comfortable like making the call and making a choice and pivoting, you might do well in But if that's not who you are, if you're not suited to that and you just want to kind of sit with the books and really just work on that more so than you still have to do a lot of more marketing than you used to if you're
Yeah.
traditional and things like this. But pick the thing that will suit you better. And don't try to be a square peg in a round hole.
Right. So
Um,
the three attributes you're talking about there of being able to uh, have a bit of arrogance and yet take the criticism and use the criticism when you're working yourself, you're self-publishing yourself. Do you go out? Do you hire an editor? Is it more like a line editor that's just going to go through for grammar, or is it like a macro editor that's going to go? Have
and
you thought about this for that character arc or
yeah,
different
you
things?
can go and find you can go find developmental editors, copy editors, proofreaders. These can be all separate people, or they could be the same person. You can go and find all these people out there. Um, it's hard to the scariest thing is knowing are these people you're hiring any good?
Hmm.
Because you know who's and sometimes folk from the industry will moonlight a little bit, but their rates tend to be frankly astronomical, and it's hard to know whether that's necessarily worth it. I've always had copy editors and proofreaders, but some have worked out better than others, and it took me a while to kind of land in my current setup. And the chap I work with now, Anthony Wright, who does the copy editing and proofing for Songs of Chaos, and he's really great. But it took me a while to find him because you'll go through some people might not work or whatever the case may be. And I'm very fortunate that my close friend Brooke Aston, who co-founded Portal Books with me a few years back, which I'm no longer running day to day, but he has just got the best developmental edit mind of anyone that I've met. And I've not met too many developmental editors, and I've not worked with developmental editors from a trad house, so they could all be absolutely stunningly brilliant. But
Right.
Brooke, who is my friend, is just so good at this stuff, and he runs all the editing for Portal Books because he's just got this real knack for like structure and pace, and And if I'm stuck, I can brainstorm with him for an hour, and everything will be fixed. Where I could wander around, racking my brain and hitting my head off the wall for like days on end. But if I can chat to Brooke, it's simple.
So you do
So
have,
you will
yeah,
find these people. Yeah, and
yeah.
it will take you a while, right? It won't happen overnight, but you will find your own little team.
Hmm.
Um, that builds up naturally. The same way that when I go out and find a narrator, you're hiring a real, you're hiring the writer, you're paying them, you're paying a studio for the production, you're doing all the stuff that would be otherwise done. You're just paying for it and project managing it. But that's fine. It works.
Scary.
Yeah.
Sounds scary, man.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe when you start now, I'm used to it, but it's not that scary.
Yeah.
It's really not that scary. I think the scariest thing would be working with a developmental editor where they charge the most and
Yeah.
you don't gel
Yeah.
and you don't vibe and you don't agree with them. That would be
Right.
really scary because then you think, what do I do now? So, and I don't really have any advice for that other than you'll probably have to go through a few people,
Yeah.
be it copy editors or whoever, until you find someone that you really like working with.
And
But
and
most indies will trust their own gut on that. Like you will get good at knowing yourself, whether it's pacing right, etc. You'll come to get that.
and you have to go out and find a cover artist. That's your
Yeah,
job as well. And you have
yeah,
done these cover. These are stunning. Like I want to get that. It's like your cover art is just phenomenal, just gorgeous.
yeah. And you can, and that's the beautiful thing. I can choose how much to spend on the covers, and I like to spend quite a lot on the covers because they're very important.
Yeah,
I can do that now because I have much more budget. Back in Dragon's Blade, the covers. I think they were very nice for what they were. A lot cheaper than these ones. That's fine. When you start, you don't have to be spending thousands and thousands on the cover. As if you're lucky to get that bit of success, you can start investing more. And yeah, you can go find the artists, but they're not. There's something to same artists, right? I mean, the guy that did the Dragon's Blade omnibus cover, Chris McGrath, he does a lot of the Sanderson Mistborn covers and the Dresden File covers and other ones. I'm sure there's many more. It's just you can hire the same people as all of these other houses.
sure.
They're artists, they're freelancers. Your money is the same value as
As
other
anybody else?
money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they've got the schedule and you've got the budget and if you can make it work, great. It's the same with the narrators. Initially, I thought, oh, these narrators that work on these big books must be like celebrities or something. You'll never be able to access them. It's like no, they're actors. They want work. If they
Yeah.
have openings in the schedule and you've got the money and they they will happily narrate your book.
Oh, they
Like
just want a gig, man.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So I mean, that's maybe one thing just to maybe I had stars might have starting it. But yeah, you can if you've got the budget and you've got the wherewithal, you can get the same people that any of the big houses or any of the other big offers will get. Maybe not if you're starting out from scratch, just because as I say, budget. But
sure.
it's all there. It's all there, and you can do it all just as well.
Yeah. So let me segue in a little bit to uh, the one book I've read so far,
Yeah.
and Songs of Chaos, Book One, Ascendant. What would you say? Where's the sweet spot for the age of the reader for this series, in your opinion? What would you say?
This is where I get in trouble. Everyone wants to insist that it's YA, and I don't dislike that. I agree a tiny bit. I think I just wrote it to be ageless, because I think that's just the way I've liked to style things. I mean, Dragon's Blade was similar. It wasn't as it was a little darker, I suppose. But I don't put in too much swearing or no
Hmm.
swearing, and there's like no graphic sex. So, but otherwise, I like to keep it a bit more mature, a little bit more nuanced. As songs goes on, I allow it to be a little darker, a little. Um, I just want it to be ageless. I wanted as many people to be able to enjoy it as possible, and I think that's worked. Because everyone wants to insist it's YA, but teenagers aren't buying ebooks on their Kindle apps with credit cards, right? It's all adults that are reading it. And they're from all
Hmm.
ages. I've got people on my Discord server who are in like their 60s or older, and I know that there's folks that listen to it with their families on car drives, the audiobooks. So I've got like I've got an author friend whose son who's like 10 or maybe 10 when this ended came out, so he's maybe like 13 now, has read them all.
Yeah.
And so adults like it, the sort of young teenagers, like everyone can get into it because I'm
Yeah.
not putting any, and it's not that wasn't necessarily a choice to try and gain more readership, although in some ways it could be smart. I don't know, but that's just where my style lands. I don't feel like I need to add lots of swearing in because I don't, or lots of sex in, or these elements because I think you can pull out everything that you want to if you get the emotions right. I'm not the biggest fan of. I like some dark fantasy. Don't get me wrong, but when it just relies too heavily on the shock and awe, um, that's not the good stuff. But
Yeah,
when it's relying on that and it's relying on kind of shock value, and it's it's very graphic but not emotionally intelligent, so that you could get a scene which is very graphic, but it doesn't really make you feel anything because it's just like what it's hard to explain. But you can have something where it's not all that graphic and not all but you can make the reader feel it with the right
exactly. Yeah.
emotion,
I
and
mean, if
that's
the
kind of where I'd rather be.
yeah, I think if the character motivation is there and the emotional uh, attachment is there, and I, you know what, I'm getting close to 60 and I truly enjoyed the book. But the reason I ask this question is, to me, I think it appeals to not only me, but to a younger audience in that absolute best way. And let me explain by what I mean in a couple ways, right? Like I like you, right? You came through J.K. Rowling and these things. Like I came from Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and
Yeah,
Raymond E. Feist, different eras, but the same kind of stuff, right? And I love this, and I want there to be new fans coming in all the time. And when I read this, I see, oh my God, if this had hit me at the right time, it would have changed my life. I would have been a reader of this kind of stuff for the rest of my life, right? And I see
yeah.
that potential in that book, which is why I appreciate it. And then B, the other reason why I appreciate it is when I was a young reader reading this kind of stuff, whether I knew it or not, I was adding things to the stew that was going to be what makes me up or who I am. So as I'm kind of learning these things of loyalty, compassion, empathy, through T.H. White, not right, make, justice and might make doesn't make right, but might for right, that kind of thing in the King Arthur tales that she did, and, that kind of stuff. So, and there's so much in this. This is such an amazing roadmap if it hits you at the right time to teach you how to be an empathetic, compassionate, accepting human that I don't necessarily see in a lot of other stuff. And that's why I asked that question, not because I want to slag you off for writing YA or anything of the kind. I think that is an extremely important market. And I think this should be on a bestseller list of every bookstore because of those attributes.
Yeah, that would have been fantastic. I think you're right. I mean, that all that's there, and um, I am sure that if younger readers were given the book, they would love it. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um, it's just, yeah, as you say, because I'm indie, you're not going to get into the Barnes and Noble shelves very easily. It's starting to happen. We're starting to make some headways, but it's slow going, and you can't get the disc. This is behind the scenes stuff, but you just can't get the costs into the right kind of metrics for them.
Mm.
And you have to approach each store one by one, and it's that's still going. Um, I think it could have done very well in that space, but well, I mean, I could, and now I could be wrong about this, but the way that I see, if you think of YA just as books that would appeal to younger readers, and we think of what we think, like we think of Harry Potter or Aragon or some of those other books that you talked about, but that's where YA kind of was. It wasn't really a thing until Harry Potter and Aragon, and then it very quickly. I don't want to say taken over. That sounds like that sounds negative, but Twilight came in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Twilight and Hunger Games, and that was the big hurrah. But kind of between those two, despite Hunger Games being so successful, the Twilight stuff sort of won out. Like a lot of YA became young adult fantasy romance, which
Right.
is great, but that's what it mostly became. And the whole YA sphere is veered into that market, and there are almost no books for boys out there on the market. So
Yeah.
you would think, should I have tried to get it? And maybe, but in some ways, it might not have got through because YA now has become what seems to me more like a genre that's specifically geared towards younger women, sort of 18 to 35, that kind of thing, which is great, but it's not kind of the generic broader YA that we think it is. I think it's got a little more. That could just be me, but the way that I feel sort of affirmed in this, that like some of the YA influencers who have read the book, they don't like it. because it's too long. They think it's
Really?
too long. Yeah, they think it's too long. It's too complicated.
No,
Because their stuff
no,
is a little, and
no.
there's no romance in it.
See, this is
You
see,
know,
this is everything I hate about getting the shelf Nazis and what goes on what shelf and
yeah.
who wants what, and it's like it's generalizations and they're never completely right. I mean, it works because it is complicated, and people, younger readers, just because they're younger, doesn't mean their emotions aren't valid and they're not complicated.
What is
Like
that? I mean,
they
no,
deserve something
for
that has
real.
a lot more pages and is complicated.
Well, the Harry Potter books and the Eragon, these are really long books. These are big books.
Absolutely.
Most of the books that do very well are very big, but and so this is just, I'm being very general, and 1,000 people will come after me to say that, you know, I, in the broadest sense, that's kind of how that space in the industry has gone. I do have some friends that are YA authors. They work in there and they're very successful, and they were also concerned about the length. Like they like the length to be a lot shorter, like 90,000 words or so. 100,000 would be pushing it, and Ascendant is 170,000 words.
Yeah.
Now, if you're
And the two
already a
follow-up
mass,
books seem to be
yeah,
longer.
they're
Yeah.
longer. If you're already a huge author, you'll get away with that. But they would
Mhm.
have treated me like a debut, even though I wasn't. But you know, it would have been a really hard gambit to run.
Yeah.
Um, and just where I was and everything was working well, I just, no, I'm going to stay the course because I
Yeah.
knew it would also appeal to adults, to everyone. That was the hope. And
Yeah.
and that, I only hesitate to call it YA because I know that that is a very particular thing. To everyone has a slightly different interpretation of that. Whereas I just try to call it epic fantasy, and that should kind of catch the people who I think would actually really enjoy it.
Yeah. How
You
about
know,
epic
everyone that loves an epic fantasy will
epic fantasy
probably
that
like it.
has it's got a universal audience appeal? How about that?
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's what
Okay.
it is.
This is something that really struck me when I read the book was the attention paid to the emotional landscape of these characters. You know, and I don't want to give too much away. So, you know, like give me a sign if you think I am. But the magic system itself is, you know, one being attaching themselves to another being's soul and understanding and being empathetic and being able to, you know, come to a reading and come together in a way that brings power not and even characters that aren't doing that but just characters dealing with each other on a one-on-one interpersonal basis, like the emotional landscape of this book is so textured and so complex, and there's a lot of big themes going on. That's what I love about it for readers of all ages, because younger readers deserve that stuff. They're dealing with that stuff, you know, and it's like to have it in books that they can glom onto, I think is amazing. Was that something that you set out to? Is like, I want to make the emotional landscape to be paramount and very important.
Yeah, well, I think I'm fairly character driven as a writer. I think I'm fairly character driven as a reader. I like it best when I see character arcs. I like to see development, whether it's, you know, someone tragically declining, whether it's them you know, going upwards, whatever the case may be. That's what I like. So when if you can have the best plot in the world, but if your characters are a little flat for me, I won't necessarily get sucked in. There's some exceptions, but as a writer, I whenever I'm starting a book out, even a book in the same series. So when I'm planning book 4 now, the things I have to nail, I'm like, okay, how are the characters growing in this book? What are they going through? How, you know, how will this affect them? And how will they come out this other side of this book? Just that little bit different, or that little more, you know, that they've had another chip in them, so they've got another slightly rough chip in this bit of them. How do we round stuff out? Because without that, I don't feel like there's anything happening if I can't feel like the characters are changing or growing, or uh, and they don't need to be becoming superheroes. They don't need to completely change their personalities, but just, you know, that they could be learning something about another character, and then they become friends. Anything that's that simple. Could be a friendship arc. Could be, you know, the mentor trainee arc. But that's where I start. That's what really makes me feel like I'm writing a story, and everything else is in service to that. So I almost certainly pay a lot more attention to how the characters are feeling internally and how they're processing things, because that's where you're going to see for me the growth in them. I mean, we can give some spoilers away. I mean, Holt, um,
I'll let
has a
you be in
very
charge of that.
Holt, who is the main character of Ascendant and Songs of
Mhm.
Chaos. He is he starts, he's 15. He is the pot washer, and he has a very romantic idea of what it would be like to become a dragon rider, which a lot of dragon riding books sort of have, which makes sense. You want to aspire to something, but if Holt just got to do that and it was wonderful and amazing, you would have to be like, and then what? So
Right,
what?
right.
I think there's a part of us, and so I have to add that, and so what? And
Yeah,
so maybe it's not as rosy as he thought,
right.
obviously,
And
but
there's delicious prices to be paid for that dream, as opposed to just a heroic fantasy. Like, that's what I love about the complexity of there's delicious prices to be paid here.
yeah, that like yeah, Holt. You might think at first that some of those riders are dickheads. Why are they so arrogant? Why are they talking to? And then you see what they have to go through, and you think, oh, maybe they're stressed out of their minds all the time, and
Right,
and whatever else might be happening, and maybe some of them are just dickheads. But you get to see that whole picture. You get to see you get to be like, okay, it, yeah, it isn't so simple. Yeah,
sure.
and you get that through the character learning and engaging and questioning their own beliefs as much as anything else. I think you'd be a kind of strange person. Well, I think you'd be a strange person to never ever doubt yourself or ever doubt
Oh,
what you're thinking and what you thought, right? And so, like, the characters have to go through that all the time, and that means that if they're asking themselves, "Is this right? Is this
yeah,
true? Am I right about this?" And
right.
yeah, you
No,
you got to go through that.
you'd be a person no one wants to hang out with, that's for sure, you know? So, I mean,
But
these
yeah,
are yeah, so Holt to me strikes me as and I brought this up a little bit, on the top of the interview, is that he does have that outsider feel, right? Holt Cook, he is the pot washer, and he finds himself even though he's fantasized about this wider world of the Dragon Riders, when he finds himself in there, uh through ideas of class or different things, like, he is most definitely an outsider that he has to overcome being that outsider. And he's got his
yeah,
moments of young person angst where he just gets, up to here with it, up to here being judged for being different, and he flashes, but then he's always pretty centered. He always comes back to himself pretty quickly. Um, is there something, I mean, and again, it sounds like in your first trilogy, there's some of that as well. Is there, I mean, can you pinpoint something in yourself that you had to overcome, or why the outsider feel seems to be so important to you?
no, I did. Well, I don't want to make some kind of tragedy out of it. Maybe again, maybe there's a lot of stuff that happens in your subconscious, both from the characters. Like this comes out more in Songs of Chaos 3 because they start talking about spiritual development and it's all about inner truth and stuff like this, right? And so things can be buried deep in your subconscious that you don't necessarily know. So maybe that has come out, but no. So that I have that Scottish British thing, so
Yeah,
I understood that topic quite well. That's something where you have two identities going on, which is interesting and nuanced. And then I on the west coast of Scotland, everyone's obsessed with football. I hate football. I couldn't stand it. I knew nothing about it. But, this is soccer, right? So
oh, I
everyone's
know.
obsessed with it. Yeah,
I'm well aware. I'm well aware what you call football.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, everyone's obsessed with that. I couldn't care. I've been to soccer matches and fallen asleep at a soccer match. I'm not kidding. I have in the stadium falling asleep. Like that's how, but stuff like that. Like so, I was the nerdy guy. I loved Lord of the Rings, and it's not that other people didn't, but no one was into it as much as I was. Not saying that I felt like some outsider and was oppressed or anything, but I think that you get a little bit of that when you move around. When the uni I went to, there was very few Scottish people there. It was a lot of Americans and people from Europe, which was great in many ways. But you always, you're never quite, I don't know, completely where you don't feel
Right,
like everyone around you is like you. Um,
right.
and that's fine. I mean, I'm a weirdo that likes to write fantasy books. There's not many of us. We're actually
Yeah.
quite a rare breed.
This is
Um,
fascinating to me because I'm seeing a lot of Holt in you, my brother. Like,
yeah,
as
I
you
like to cook, so I got to cook.
yeah, and then also it's like as we read the book, and again, it's like I'm going to stay as vague or as broad as possible. But in so many books like this, right? Like, it seems like the ability of the young person that is going to have this hero's journey, is physical. right? They're a
Mm.
great warrior or something like that. And it's
Mm.
like, that is not Holt's
No,
cup of tea, man. Like he is like he's not that great with a sword. He's not that great,
no,
but it's like
he's pretty
his
pants.
ability to empathetically and compassionately and to connect and to walk in someone else's shoes and I just love the end of this book where it's going is so tailor-made perfectly for a hero that is their bailiwick. So to hear you say it's like, yeah, the soccer is not my thing, the physical is not, it's not really my thing. It's like it's amazing to you can kind of see where Holt came from and where he was born from.
But also, that's just if you're gonna do a Dragon Rider epic like this, and you're going to follow initially that, because like I wouldn't say it's impossible. I think it's a relatively, you can see you can see the tropes, you can see the framework, but I'm hopefully doing it in a really good way. It's the same like going to say, oh, I want a great steak. Everyone's had steak, but if you
Yeah.
make it really, really good, it's some of the best food. You don't have to be ultra fancy all the time. But so Ascendant starts as just like it's the brilliant steak, and then I can try to be a little different thereafter. But if you're going to try and make something really amazing, you do have to be just that little. That's like the familiar and the strange thing that we talk about in writing. It's familiar enough, but there's that little bit of strange. And what's the well, Holt? Yeah, he's rubbish with a sword, and he isn't like some absolute badass.
No, not at
In
all.
the
Not at
beginning.
all.
No, no, no. Clumsy but not in a way that's like overdone either. Like he's way out of his depth, trying his best. If he becomes capable later, it's because he's gone through a lot more. You don't just immediately become a master swordsman. But and if you're doing a Dragon Rider fantasy, I feel like the most important part is the bond between the dragon and the rider. So that becomes central to everything, right? You're not awesome on your own because you need your bond with your dragon.
Yeah.
That's the superpower. That's the magic. And if
And
it's a relationship, the relationships aren't made better by being good with a sword. It's everything else. It's all the character work. It's all the internal stuff. And so yeah, at the end, it's I guess yeah, I don't want to spoil it, but like the end has that twist of like, oh, you see what Holt takes a path you're not expecting. I'll say
right.
that.
But at the end, I mean, you
Yeah,
don't have that. Oh, and again, this speaks to it's not being not complex or too simplistic. At the end, it's not that it's like he's accepted now. It's like if anything, he's more of an outsider at the end than he
yeah,
starts out at the beginning. I mean, his journey actually takes him to be even. He may be more comfortable in his own skin than he was at the beginning, but the world around him sees him as more of an
yeah.
outsider
He's
than they did at the beginning.
throughout. I think throughout the first book, he's very much trying to fight to be accepted.
Yeah,
And I guess at the end, he realizes that okay, me and Ash can just accept ourselves
right,
and we're going to be like that, and everyone else can bog off,
right,
basically.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
they come to realize that, like, yeah, they're not going to just earn that all everything around them isn't going to just simply change just because they just think that it should. Which you might have some stories where everything does change very rapidly like that. All the hero has proven themselves and
right,
everything is going to change. And it's like if this world has to have any realistic meat on it, the societies aren't going to just at the drop of a hat change everything. This is all very strict. That's the point. So they're more heroic, I think, by constantly kind of striking out against it a little bit, but not in a way to be like we're going to like destroy this. We're not going to tear it down. It's just we're going to be ourselves, and we're going to go and do what we think needs to be done. And
and we're going to do
it's
what we feel is right. And we're going to speak up for what we feel is right. Yeah, I mean, he
yeah,
has that power at the end for sure, but still very much an outsider, which I appreciated that. There's
yeah,
the one moment
and Ash too, right? The
oh
both
oh
Ash
yeah,
siblings.
I
Yeah,
mean
yeah,
Ash I think even more so. To me, Ash has less of a way to travel because he was born such an outsider. He accepts
yeah.
himself in his own skin even earlier, and he has Holt to help with that. So it's. But I gotta bring up one moment because this was just
Yeah.
huge for me that I don't see in a lot of other books, right? And again, I'm going to stay very broad and very vague. So when someone goes on a hero's journey, obviously there's obstacles and there's strifes and there's stuff coming at you and there's
Mhm.
high drama and there's those moments of fight or flight, right? And that's as much as I'm going to say. So Holt has to fight back.
Yeah.
And in that moment when he does have to fight back, and it's like, hey, it's me or this person thing, whatever, what fill in the blank, I'm being vague, that I have to fight back against. He has to, it's not just at the end, it's not just like well, clean my blade, put it back and move on. Like he has a human moment of, oh, what the heck have I done? How does that feel? Who does that make me? And I don't see that often, that beat, that moment taken for character when that happens. I mean, was obviously that was important to you.
So you're referring to the scene in the woods, right?
Yes, in the Withering
Yeah.
Wood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to repeat. Yeah. Yeah. Again, yeah, I wrote, Descendant. I was writing that 2019 and early 2020, so trying to cast back to specifics gets tricky. But I know the scene, and all I can know is like, yeah, he's a 15-year-old pot washer who, again, if you've dreamed of this stuff, the reality is never going to be so. I mean, if anything you do, right? A lot of
Right.
people dream of being a writer. I did. And then sometimes you get into the trenches of that, and it's not all rainbows and sunshine and roses, right? Sometimes there's a lot of horrible shit that you have to wade through, and sometimes it's not exactly as you thought. And in that situation, it's a combat situation. And he has to. It's not a spoiler, really. It's not really a spoiler to say he kills for the first time.
Okay, yeah, you're allowed to do that. I didn't want to do it, but yeah, it's your book, so if you,
I think you have to say,
sure,
because that in a book
I mean,
like this,
I don't think that's a big
happen.
spoiler. You know that's gonna happen. Yeah, you know that's gonna have to happen.
But yeah, he kills for the first time. I think he'd be a weird psychopathic little kid if he just wiped his sword, sort of flexed his muscles, and was like, "Wow, that was awesome,"
But you've seen it, right? It happens all the time.
Yeah, you see it. You absolutely see it. But that's why I'm saying, like, if you're gonna do this kind of book, you gotta make the state perfect. So I'm like, okay, what is a real person gonna, for all the magic and the dragons, if you're anyone and you get shoved into a war for the first time, I think people can be more shocked by what they do rather than what is done to them.
Mm-hmm.
I think actually, like, the true horrors sometimes. I think some of the truest PTSD cases is not like things that happen to a person in a war, but like what they have what they have watched themselves in some way do. Like in the moment, they have committed such aggression, such violence,
Right,
and they feel a bit disembodied, like because they can't compute, they can't marry it up. Like, I'm not this person. What the heck happened there?
right, and then after
But
the
yeah,
fact, they have to come back and redefine who they are after that moment.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and it's a struggle for Holt, even through even through the second book, to an extent. He's still trying to come to terms with exactly what he thinks about this in some ways. And it's a big difference between killing the evil scourge bugs and
well, I mean,
killing
sure.
no evil scourge
I mean,
bugs.
it's like that. That's such an otherworldly. Like I dig the Scourge, man. Like that. What a great enemy. And just for me, and I don't know if this is too spoiler, but I mean, do we find out in books 2 and 3 how they do the whole thing with the dead rising? I mean, do we figure that out?
With the you learn a lot more about the scourge.
Okay,
And a
all
lot
right,
more about how it operates.
all right. Well,
That you
okay,
do. You learn more is always unfolded. Yeah. Yeah.
okay. So another trope that I love about it is the found family, Talia and Pyra, and then Brood or Brood. Am I how
Broad.
Brood
Yeah.
in the mentor role? Them having the found family and how important that can be. I absolutely love that. That's a trope that never gets old for me, and I thought it was just done to perfection here.
Thanks, man.
But I mean, they start out not on the same page at all.
No, not at all.
And
No.
that's the greatest part of watching or reading this journey, is because, when they get there, you're like, well, yeah, I buy it. I totally buy it. I mean, it's it's the character motivations and the journey of emotion that you can attach yourself through absolutely work, and you absolutely buy it by the end. I don't know if there's a question in that, but hats off to you on that.
No, just thank you. That was great. Yeah.
That, I mean, I just love that trope, and you did it so well. Is there more now? As I say, he's even more of an outsider at the end. Do we get some of that in book 2 and book 3? Because I feel like, just tell me I get more Rake. Like, am I going to get? Is he going to?
Rick. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
that makes me a happy guy because
One
he.
more Rick.
Okay, yeah, that's all I want to hear. I dig that. I got to find out more about
Yeah.
that character.
You
Um,
get more. I think you get more friend family stuff. Obviously, they will meet new people. They will meet some new characters who they will befriend and things like this. Uh, a lot more, and that remains strong. And again, even into book three, that found family aspect for Hope in particular is really pivotal in book three. There's a whole part of that which I definitely don't want to spoil, but you'll know it when you get to it.
okay.
So these things definitely carry forward, especially for these outcasts. It's important, right?
I,
Yeah,
I had a, I mean, and you know, you probably moving to a different place, you find this yourself. Like you, if not for found family, after you leave yours and kind of find your own way in the world, if not for found family, I mean, we would be, I would have been lost, man, completely lost. So maybe that's why I appreciate it so much. I think now, tell me if this is true or not. Like this is planned up to 5 books. Is that what the whole five?
five,
Okay.
five.
So, and you're planning out 4 now?
Yep, planning out for. Uh, should get to writing it soon. I took a little side detour to do 2 novellas, which are going to come out um, soon. One's a Dragon's Blade one, and one's a Songs of Chaos one. I had these stories in various ways, but I'm like making them better, improving them, expanding them. And these are sort of projects that I wanted to work on. But once I start a main book, that is my only focus. And if I deviate from that, that's very dangerous. So I'm getting all this stuff out of the way now, whilst I plan book four, and I will start book four.
Okay.
And it should, yeah, 5 book series should be good. Should be good for that.
So optimally, you seem pretty disciplined and prolific. So do you have like the series should be finished by? Do you
No,
have?
I don't want to put dates like that on it because they are very big books and
Yeah.
Defiance 250,000 words published. It was 300,000 that I edited down. That was partly from a lot going on. We were, buying our first place, getting married, all these things. Like there was a lot of distractions. But it was also the hardest one because it's right in the middle of the series. So you're wrapping some things up. You're introducing new things.
Right.
But no, hopefully 4 and 5 are a little easier. I hope because with now narrowing it down towards the conclusion as opposed to we're not expanding anymore. We'll be bringing it to the end.
Right.
I think
Well,
four will be. I hope four will be shorter than Define, probably about the same length as book two. But I want to get it nice and snappy. But I just don't know. I don't know what will happen. I don't want to start putting
yeah.
dates on things before I miss them. I keep people up to date, pretty regularly. Once I start, I tend to do like a monthly update where I talk about where I am and stuff like that. So everyone can keep track of that.
Are you one of those writers that you leave it open enough for the characters to surprise you and the story to surprise you, or do you plan it out to where, I mean, I know exactly chapter to chapter the big beats that are gonna happen?
So I know what I need I can't get anywhere until I know what my character arcs are going to be for each book, or like the big character journeys. And for each one, that's going to be a little different. So for Hall and Ash, a big one is okay. Where are they going on the magic progression in this book, and how does that relate to their character arc? Because that's entirely interwoven. The magic
Right.
system and the character progression are completely locked together. One is not apart from the other. The way that the bond system works, as you know. So I need to get all of that sort of the big scope of it, and then I can kind of work through the rough beats about what I need. But then chapter to chapter, things can surprise me. I've started to plan each chapter in incredible detail before I write now. Um, but so I might have a good idea of what's coming 2 or 3 chapters ahead, but after that, it's a little vague. I know what needs to happen, but it's not ultra detailed, and that still allows me to have these little organic moments. So I'm kind of like I'm maybe halfway in between a planner and a gardener.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just kind of and that seems to be working. So I I can always try to be more efficient. There are some people that just amaze me with how much they write, and not just how much, but the quality. But I know I constantly edit. I go over it again, 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 again. It seems to be working.
How many drafts are normal for you, would you say?
I don't really do like full drafts. So like what might happen is I might write, you know, I kind of work in big chunks. I might write like 40, 50,000 odd words. And then I might think, okay, there's some really key things that I've realized I have to do with this section. should I write forward and then come back? And sometimes I think, no, I need to go back and sort this out now. Otherwise, going forward, trying to carry the changes forward as if they've already happened can get kind of messy, and you forget. So sometimes I'll go back and sort of sweep through a chunk past, and then I'll
Mhm.
write on. But I'm not like redrafting the whole book. Generally speaking, once I get a draft together, it's probably 90% of the way there. And then
Mm.
it's because I've done so much editing on the way, um, chapter by chapter or by chunk or by POV. And then it's just a case of, further edits, polish, 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 polish.
Yeah.
Because you've got it, being 90% isn't even close to good enough. You've got to get it to like as close to 99 as you could possibly get it,
Yeah.
because this got to be good.
Yeah.
Got to
Oh,
be good
yeah.
as you can make it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, with the self-pub, I mean, there's so much competition. I mean, it's not just what's on the shelves of the bookstore. It's like the spectrum broadens of what's available to readers now, you know?
Yeah. Oh, this whole subgenres that exist only in that kind of digital indie sphere that you'll never see in Barnes and Noble. They only exist on like Amazon, but they're huge.
Yeah.
These huge subgenres. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, Michael R. Miller, thank you so much for taking the time, and I hope it wasn't too painful.
this was fantastic, John. I would honestly, I'd stay on for longer, but I do have to get up early and travel to FantasyCon tomorrow in the UK.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be too knackered for that.
Yeah, I know you got a lot of books to sign tomorrow, and have a great time. And I wanted to keep it right at the hour mark. We're right there. Thank you so much for taking an hour. I just one more quick thing before we sign
Yeah.
off. You said you're starting to think a little bit forward about what
Yeah.
comes after Songs of Chaos, and I'm not going to ask you to, are we still in the fantasy genre, or do we move outside to something different?
No, we'll still be in fantasy.
Okay.
We'll still be in epic fantasy for sure.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Excellent.
But
Well, I
yeah,
cannot.
for your first interview, John, this was fantastic. You were really great. Nice and fun. I may say, like, I loved that review, obviously, and it had such an earnest depth to it, and you really plucked out some of the things that I really find important when people latch onto certain points about the series, like hope's compassion, and that sort of stuff really means something to me, because sometimes people skip over it, and I'm like, oh. But you didn't. You really grabbed that, and that felt really special. So
You
thanks
know,
for such a great review
to
and for a
me,
great
one
great
of the
chat.
amazing things about booktube that I'm finding is when you meet people and you get to talk to people, and I'm not saying I'm a great critic by any stretch of the imagination, but the audience, readers in this case, and their back and forth with the artist, and how an artist can take that on and allow it to help them bolster their craft and grow their craft. I think that back and forth is so essential and so important, and it's just phenomenal that this kind of exists to where people can do it. So just to be heard, or to have you come on and chat with me, has just been amazing. And you taking the time to say that to me, it's really special to me. And I really appreciate it. And I appreciate your time so much today, Michael Miller. Have a great time at the con.
Thank you, man. And yeah, in the future, if you want to have me back, I'd be happy to come back. Maybe when you've caught up with book 3 or something, happy to come back, man.
I will
Anytime.
take you up on that. I want to do books 2 and 3 pretty early into 2024 as when I can slot them in, and I cannot wait to get to them.
Awesome, man. Thanks very much again.